So describe me your first trip to Villa Grande.
So the reason why I came to Villa Grande is you have to find it a bit earlier. This is in 99. In 99, we have a meeting in Montpellier. This is south of France. And this is a meeting of people dealing with research on longevity. And they are very attentive to age validation, which means that if these old persons are really so old and so on, these are demographer and some are genetician and medical doctor. So at that meeting in October 99, a medical doctor from Sardinia did a presentation. And in this presentation, he explained that in the Nuoro province, where we are here, in the Nuoro province, the number of male centenarian and female centenarian is about the same. We were really skeptical. Why? Because all over the world, you have 5, 6, even 10 times more female centenarian compared to male centenarian. So if you have a place where you have the same number, it means that probably the male has exaggerated their age. So they have declared that they are 100, but they are not 100. So it was clear. I remember the coffee break there, and during the coffee break, they say we need to send somebody to validate, to see what happens, because it's a remote area in the mountain there. And the person from Istat, the statistical office of Italia, say probably the data are not existing or there will be problem. And as I was probably the only one as historical demographer there, I was volunteer. And so I say I will go there next January. So we were in October and I planned to come 20th of January 2000. And okay, all was wonderful. They collect me at the airport in Alghero. They were there, very happy that I will come. And they say, we go to a celebration in a village of 4 centenarian in a village of 3,000 inhabitants. That was Arzana, just nearby. And okay, I say, yes, I am ready to go. But how can I congratulate this person if I will say just after that they are false? Okay, so I say before to go to the municipio, I want to go to the municipio to see the document, if at least if they exist. So we went quickly to the municipio, and they show me that birth register exists, and they show me even the birth record of this person. I say, okay, at least even if I'm not convinced, because there may be other error, but at least there are documents that may allow me to check. And then I went to the celebration. Among the 4, 2 centenarian, 2 girls were there in black. And I have still in my office the plate that they gave me, telling that on the 22nd of January 2000, I was there and they thanked me. That's really the starting point. So the second step was that we have to go from village to village and to look all people who reach 100 and to check their document. And that's what we did one by one. And after 2 months, I was able to conclude that I did not find any error. Only one small error was in this village. A girl, I see a girl, who was supposed to die at 110, in fact, replaced her older sister when this older sister died at age 2. And so there is a mistake because they consider that it was her sister and it was the second one. So she was effectively 107, only 107, you see. But except this, I did not find any error.
And were you surprised about it?
And I was fully surprised. And that was the starting point of the second step. Because according to those who asked me to come, all was perfect. You have done your job, all is okay. But then I say to my friend Gianni, this is not the only thing. There is something more strong, more, I will say, more exceptional here. Look, I say, when you go from one village to the other one, every time you find new centenarian. So they are not everywhere lost in the country. They are really a group in the mountain area. There is a non-random distribution of centenarian. And I tried to do it to put on the map the village where we found centenarian. And it was, I did it slowly, and I put it with a blue pen. And I discussed with my friend, I say, you look this blue zone. So already in March 2000, I was using the term blue zone to identify this area where they have a higher number of centenarian.
What do you mean? What do you mean with blue zone?
This is just because I use a blue pencil. And with the blue pencil, I mark on the map all the village, and I surrounded the place where they have this high longevity. And when I was discussing with my friend, I say, in the blue zone this, outside of the blue zone this. So the name blue zone became familiar between us already in 2000. And but the big difference is that in most of the study, they are doing study on centenarian that are there, a bit everywhere in the city. Here, we are working with what I name population longevity, which means the whole population is living longer, not only 1 or 2 person and the other one are normal. No, in the village, you may have easily 2, 3, 4 centenarian, and even nonagerian, the number is incredible. So I push the group to go to this new concept of population longevity. And then somebody in a meeting in October 2000 tell me in Roma, but how is it possible that these people reach in so large number 100 or 90, and that the men do it also very well?
One second. But why is it so unique, this blue zone?
No, but first, the key point was that when I tried to explain it in a meeting that we have in Roma with the same group, they were really skeptical, still skeptical. And so I discussed with them, and I understand that the only way to prove that it is very unique is to take one village, and in one village to start to do the full in-depth story, to work really. And then I say to my friend, we will choose the village that is the highest in the indicator, the longevity indicator. I will say the one that is the cherry on the cake. You see, you have the cake is the longevity area, but you have one village on the top. So and that was the village where we had this girl 110 that was effectively 107, but I know that Villa Grande may be a good place. So we started in 2000 to collect all genealogical and demographical data on Villa Grande. But it took a lot of time for a lot of reasons. A reason first is that the work is not an easy task. Finally, our database now has 17,000 persons with all the family links and a lot of things like that. So you cannot do this in 1 month. It takes, you have to look through all the birth record, the death record, the anagraphy, so the population register, and so on. So it's a very huge work. So it took a long time. But in Sardinia, there is not only the problem of data collection, there is the problem of local sensibility. And after some times, I understand that they were a bit disturbed by my work. They considered that the local researcher, and moreover, it was a local policymaker. He was deputy at the region, and he say, I don't want anymore that this foreigner, because this is important. If you are not from the island, you are automatically a foreigner. That this foreigner will continue to work with us. He is disturbing me. And so at one moment, my work was really the base for a project in the US, NIA, National Institute of Aging. We were directly ranked very high. There was even a mention in the Science, that the magazine, that this crack historical demographer validated this data. So that was done in 2000, and then they decide, because of this guy, you have to grow away. I have a letter from my professor from the Duke in the US telling Michel, for the future of the research, you have to go out from the system. It's crazy for you. when you have such an obstacle, just because you have good idea and you feel you have to go ahead with this idea.
No, but we are convinced that you are the one that is doing the work. So I understand it, but that's less important for us. I mean, you are for us the one that finds is researching the blue zone. So I would like to continue on that and not on the negative part.
Exactly.
So tell me, looking at this blue zone where we are here, what in your opinion makes it so unique? Why is this the blue zone? What is it in these people that is so magical that they grow this old?
So I think that I did not discover it at the beginning. At the beginning, my only what attracted me is that the number of centenarians was very high, and that the number of male and female was at the same level. This is unique. Okay, you will never find another place on Earth where the number of centenarians is equal between male and female. It was the situation in the past, or it may be still the situation in some place of Sri Lanka or India, but this is because of other situation. This is a question of local cultural situation. But in our modern society, you have more and more female centenarian compared to male. And so having a place where it's 1-to-1, wow, this is terrific. So doing so, I want, and moreover, the indicator, the level of longevity for male was really twice more than in all other countries. You have a chance out of 10 to reach 90 and in good shape. That's so we did two things. We did first the data collection, but we started also to meet people and to try to understand why. Because when you discover something, you have to say why. But there is a third thing that we have to do is to convince our colleagues. And it took me 10 years to convince first that the data were true, and that the situation is that there is this balance between male and female. 10 years. They did even something that I never have in my scientific career. They sent, without informing me, a new validation story, another team to validate what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that finally I got the information after, and they found that it was correct. But it's so crazy to have such situation that they need really to take 10 years to agree with the situation.
A part of that's clear. So tell me about the second part. What makes it that this is the only place in the world where there are male and female centennials?
So when everybody agree on this, then you have to start the explanation, and that therefore we started to do survey. Not, I will say, it's not a survey with a very long questionnaire, and no, it's a survey that as a large part is open question to try to understand. This is one part of the story. Then we also decide with the municipality here to do a longevity celebration, which means that to be very close with the population. This is the only way to try to understand. And progressively we point out the different aspects of their life that that might contribute to the exceptional longevity. The first one that emerged is the fact that these people here as a physical activity that really don't stop at 65. They continue to work. Even at 90, they decide to keep their garden and so on. So there is a physical activity that is really at high level. Moreover, in the village, as you have seen, if you go from one place to the other one, you have always to jump. The slopes are everywhere, which means that we are not in the flat area. We are obliged to do effort on a daily basis. So in terms of physical activity and physical effort, that's clear. There is a lesson that we have to consider from here. It's not only here, it's always also in other places like this one around the world. So they live longer as active. That's the point. Then the second point is the fact that what they eat is quite different. I will not say that they have a Mediterranean diet. They don't have this Mediterranean diet because, for example, somebody will say that take fish. Yeah, but if you look, the fish, you have 28 kilometers from the sea, and in the past, the fish never arrive here. So it's not the fish, it's meat. They have meat, and they eat quite a lot of meat. They have fruit and they have vegetable. But what is the two important thing is that this is locally produced food. In the village, they do prosciutto, so this ham. They do the courgettes. This is the special dumpling. They do the cheese. They have their potato. They have their wine. So I will say that compared to our Western society, 90% of what they appear on the table is locally produced and does not go through the food industry. And for me, I will say that in our country, it's the opposite. You have 90% that went through the food industry. So the natural food is very important. But moreover, I will say that the wine is not the best. And even they serve it cold. If you have cold wine, for us, it's a crime. But it's local. It's not. It doesn't go through a system where they add something, they suppress. You know that some wine now you have a taste, but the taste has been added, and so here you are sure that this is wine that they produce, the tomato, everything, olive, the same, and so on. So, but as I say, the meat come quite is abundant. The porchetto, for example. And this is the pork seems to be similar with other place. The pork, the goat, not so much the cow. So and but what is clear is that these animals, the meat of these animals, is not the same as the one in our country, because these animal has been in the mountain. They ate, I will say, a lot of herbs that are antioxidant work, and that and so the meat is fully different, and that's something that you may compare. Yesterday I was still in another place, and the meat was really wonderful, fully different compared to what we have in our country, where it go through a process that is not exactly. So the quality of the food, the locally produced food, and then when they do a meal here, it's not fast food. It takes time. Okay, they meet in the family, so the social dimension of the meal is also very important. You may have 2 or 3 hours around the table, large family, and they eat. They eat maybe too much. I don't know, but it's the social dimension of the meal is very important.
So the social infrastructure of the area is very important.
Exactly, and the social support for the oldest old, which means, for example, it's the only place on in the world that I have seen that they produce calendar with all the centenarian every year. So you have a lot of things that happen. When we organized the longevity celebration, there were 31 photography of centenarian in the street. So they are really promoting centenarian, promoting the longevity, so that these very old people are not outside of the system. You see, they are not pushed outside of the daily life. They are part of the daily life in this village. The support to old people. Nobody go in nursing home. There is no nursing home here. If you have to go to nursing home, you should go to the city that is half an hour from here. So they stay in the village. If they are not living with their child, they stay in the neighboring house. So they stay in their own surrounding environment, but they have direct support. And if they have no children, the neighboring people will take care of them. So there is a solidarity. That is a very important. So the place of the oldest old in the society is very important. And I will say that our postmodern society tried to put away after some age. You are even put away at 50 from the work. You are away when you are becoming dependent. They put you in a nursing home. And so here, no, you are really integrated.
But when you the border of the blue zone, you have within the blue zone, and then just outside the blue zone, there is already a difference. What is that difference? What makes that
Okay,
just outside the blue
then
zone it's a
then
different?
I will say that this is the problem of the shaping of the blue zone, which means that in fact you have a gradient, and if Villa Grande is on the top, the neighboring village Arzanatala, Naurzule are not far from the top, and so you try to see what are the same characteristic of these village. But if you go to the valley there, Tortoli is there below, then maybe the solidarity is the same, but you feel a big difference. You feel a big difference. There are more people. People are more the result of immigration and so on. Why in this village, people went out. Yes, there are some immigration, but there are very limited people that arrive here, which means that the problem is that the population is decreasing, because when you are young people, you want to find a job. This is not easy. So 1 out of 2 leave the village at age 20 or 30, and the other one will stay here. But then the population is decreasing. So these villages are really keeping their cultural, their specificity, and that's why the solidarity is still the higher. In the city like Cagliari and Sassari, this is not possible to see this. So, and that's a very important point. But where does it stop? This is the problem. So we did on the map a place that we named the Blue Zone with 14 villages just nearby, based on the longevity index. And then we have a larger one that cover all the mountain of Sardinia. That is a light blue zone, if you want. And then you have the rest of Sardinia. And we did it based on a scientific investigation with smoothing methods and so on. But so we look for that, the longevity index.
But
And now we go with this, and we try to see what is the difference between a longevity village and another one. And that's what we are doing now. We are picking some villages that are not in the blue zone, and we try to compare what are the difference between the two.
what are the differences?
We are not yet far in this, because this is something not easy to do, because we have different, for example, the level of dementia should be compared, the level of depression, but also all genes and some biomedical indicator, biomarker. Recently, we discovered that in their intestine, there is a big difference between what we found here and what we found in the cities.
What difference did you find?
There is something that make, I will say, this is the job of my colleagues.
Yeah, no, but what did he find?
It means that they are taking advantage of what they eat and so on better than the one in the valley. And it should contribute, but it's not easy to associate the two. For example, somebody tried to explain that the height, people are very short here. They are in average 1 meter 60 for men, and the women are even shorter. And somebody find a gene explaining this. And now we are doing some review to see, is it this genes, is it something like that, and so on. Is it the food and so on. But we saw really big difference. And in the country, the people in the mountain are shorter than people in the city there. That's very important. Can you imagine the average age at military service was 1 meter 60? And it's not so long time ago. And if you look in the village now, you will see everybody is a bit shorter there.
So that's one difference.
This is a strong difference, yes.
Yeah.
So you have probably also some difference in the genes. You have for sure a difference in the lifestyle. That's clear. In the city, you cannot have the same lifestyle as here, of the quality of water, air, and everything. The absence of stress, all those things are really different. The main problem for scientists is to put everything in the same model. And based on this, to conclude, you are dealing with an interdisciplinary approach, which means that you have an information from environment, from nutrition, from anthropology, from sociology, from demography, from genetics, and even now from epigenetics. Epigenetics is a new way to enter in the study of longevity. It's the interaction between genetics and environment. And we are convinced, we tried to do something in Sardinia with genetics. We did not find any genes that may explain the longevity in Sardinia. But why? Because we need 3,000, 10,000 centenarians to reach a weak conclusion in genetics. In epigenetics, and that's very attractive, with 200 persons, you may already conclude something. And what is good is that usually they are now doing epigenetics on centenarian, but centenarian plick-plock like this. Here, we will do epigenetics on a population that has common trait, which means same food, same environment, same. So we are controlling a lot of variable so that we will be able to see if something is really particular, and we have already some explanation because the food is the same, and so on. So we are in the best condition to see if there is some epigenetics of longevity, and we have already some explanation if it emerge.
And did
And
something emerge?
what this explanation could be, it should be linked to the special life of shepherd. So you have to know that in this area, beginning of the 20th century, everybody was shepherd or as parents that were shepherd and so on. What was the life of shepherd? They have to go in winter in the valley, 6 months, and they go really 40 kilometers from here with all their animals. Only the men go there, the shepherd. And they come back in May, early May, in the village with all the animals. And this is 1 week of big celebration in the village, but they stay only 1 week in the village. That's why 9 months later you have a lot of baby, just this. And then they go up to the mountain, and they stay in the mountain the whole summer and come back in October, November, and then again go to the winter. So these shepherds spend most of their life outside of their family. They have a very different way of living. They have a very different food because they have to rely on their cheese, on herbs that they found, and on this bread that you can see, this bread that you take with you and may stay several months. This bistaku. This is a bread that you have to wash before to eat to make it easier to eat. And but so it's different nutrition, different way of living, and so. So I assume, and the mother at home has all the I would say all the difficulty, all the stress of the family. This is the reason why men and women live probably the same, because their life is fully different. But at the same time, um, having this very positive aspect in the mountain, fresh air, fresh water, good food, no stress, and so on, may have an impact on your children and on your grandchildren. And it comes through epigenetics because there is a transmission from generation to generation of some trait coming from epigenetics. You may have these good genes, but due to the environment, it is not activated. And that's very important. Or you may have a bad genes, but also due to the fact that it's not activated, you will not be disturbed by this. So the role of the environment is very important. And this is a very good message for the society, because for me, it will be crazy if I conclude with my study here that there are two kind of people, those who have these good genes and those who does not have. If there is a longevity genes and somebody has the longevity genes, no problem. He may do what he wants. He will live longer than the other one. Can you imagine? This is deterministic. There is no solution. But now, the good point with epigenetics is that you may activate or non-activate those genes. You may do something yourself, and you may even take advantage of what your parents and grandparents did. And maybe the secret is that a lot of these ancestors were shepherds and has a wonderful life with wonderful situation, with physical activity, food, and so on. And it may explain the difference between male and female, and it may explain why the longevity is the highest. But definitively, we are only at the starting point, and that's why it will probably go on several years.
And when you look at when I would live here, for example, when I would move into this village, would that, and I would start
No.
to live their
I
life.
was discussing with colleagues, it was in a meeting in Boston. They say this Michel is a bit crazy because he seems to recommend to go and live as shepherd in the mountain. No, if you come here and live as shepherd, you don't have the epigenetics will not work, and it will take time to be integrated and to follow all the rules and so on. So I will not recommend that everybody will arrive here and be shepherd. It will not change their life expectancy. Okay, it may improve a bit the situation, but this is not the solution. What we try to do, and we try to do it now in the US, to try to see what are the lesson that you may take from this life here, and to try to transfer it in our postmodern society to see what is feasible, what can we keep as lesson. And it's clear that the social links are very important. The food is very important. The genes, you cannot change anything, and epigenetic, no, this is not, you have not to consider. Physical activity is important. Not to stop to work suddenly at 65 and to say, now I will stop working, I will think only on my well-being. This is the only way to go directly to the cemetery. Okay, you have to keep active, to keep your brain active, but also physical activity and so on. And that's what we try to do now in some place in the US in the so-called Blue Zone project. People in the city decide to meet and to discuss between themselves what can we do as a community to improve those things. So the way to act is not to say, you have to eat this, you have to do the physical activity and so on. We don't have direct interaction between our result and individual people. We make the environment so that they will spontaneously adopt a new and more appropriate lifestyle. And just to take an example, in the restaurant we promote longevity food, or in some restaurant we give smaller plates, because then you eat a bit less, and this is very good. Every centenarian will tell you that a big caloric restriction is very good. You have to eat until your stomach is 80% full, but not 100. So, and then you, in the shop, for example, you don't promote the chips and the Coca-Cola and so on. You put in the front apple, fruit, and so on. You are preparing a place to do cycle, to bike, to food. You are encouraging social links and so on. So these are all things that are indirect way to promote healthy aging. So all what we are doing here is to find what are the recipe for healthy aging, and to try to see which one can be transposed in other, without coming here in large number and disturbing the whole system, because it's a nonsense. You cannot here.
No, but that I understand. But I mean, suppose there is some import also in this society. I mean, there is some immigration. I can't believe that this whole village is like a fortress. Does that? What does that do to the community, to the longevity, in your opinion?
So, in fact, all our centenarians are born here because they were born 100 years ago, and the immigration here only probably started after the 50, when the village was open to due to the electricity plant and so on. The roads were better. So I will say that nowadays half of the marriage are marriage with people from outside, but up to the 50, it was 90% of the marriage that were between two people from the same village, which means that the immigration here is really low, and it's very recent. So we are not yet able to see the consequence of immigration. But what I may tell you is that when I'm talking in the village, I try to convince them that the longevity for them is a treasure, but that it is really important to keep it from generation to generation. And I am a bit afraid that it might be a temporary phenomenon, which means that, and I will explain it to you very simply, the centenarian today work a lot in the past. They have very difficult conditions. So they are first selected, and then they have a very heavy life and very active life. And suddenly, in the 60s, when they started to be sick or to have a problem, the public health was developed. And they have suddenly access to a lot of things against malaria, for example, in 48, and then they have a hospital and so on. So they take advantage of their past life, what is very active, and the modern life, what bring them public health service and so on. And so you have a conjunction of two things, but in future, the problem is that you will keep probably the access to public health, but you will lose the difficult life in the morning. And in the past, it was the opposite. You have only this active life and no public health. So for us, there is a very important question mark. Is it a temporary effect that with the emergence of a lot of longevity now, and not a random longevity as it is in our country elsewhere? Or is it something that we may keep alive for the future? And that's something to discuss with local people and to convince them that they have a treasure, but they have to do a lot of effort to keep it. And I am a bit afraid that the young generation has not yet understood that this is a real challenge. That's important.
Mm-hmm. And for you as a demographer, can you explain me um, what fascinates you in this part of demography?
Okay, this is another story. I will say that for some demographer, the only thing that they are interested in is number, mortality table, and so on. They never met anybody. They never met the population with that they interact with. They don't know. They just look in the statistics and work like this, or they do model and so on. For me, I have always been interested to meet people and to work at local level. My father was an elementary teacher. He was the master of one village. He was the only teacher in the village at elementary school. It was a village of 300 inhabitants. I know the village by heart. I have been everywhere in the village. I did the history of the village. I did a big book, and I have the full genealogy of the village. So I was in the 20s already interested by the monographic aspect, which means everything on a given population so that you may try to understand how it works. And when I arrive here, you have the initial request of validation. I did it. But then this, what I have in my interest, this monographic aspect, this contact with the population emerge. And I decide to go slowly in this direction, to work on one village, to try to understand not only demography, but also what is outside, to meet people and to interact with this population. And now I was the one that introduced the longevity celebration. I was the one that put this on the Guinness book as primata mortality maschili. They were very happy. So they make me sit in the Nidonore, this village. So I am fully involved in the village. I cannot walk in the village without being in touch with people. So this is very important for me as researcher, to be in close contact with the population where you are working on every day, and to tell them, we do symposia in the village for people in the village. And I attract researchers from all over the world, from Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, US, and they come to talk here. And there was a translation in Italian, and people were there on the first row, 1992, trying to understand, but very proud that this is their village. So you see, this is a fully different way of working. I am demographer, yes, I am basically demographer. I am even astrophysicist at the beginning. So I became demographer, but my main interest is not to be demographer, is to discover this concept of blue zone, because for me it's crazy, and I see it every day, how people are interested by this, and to try to convince people, scientists, but also other people, this is a very exceptional situation, and there is really question beyond. How is it possible that this situation exists? And I'm still there. I was retired 4 years ago, and it did not change anything. I'm continuing, and I will continue as long as I may do it. and convince young people to continue also, because this is really an attractive story.
What is for you the magic word?
The magic work.
Yeah.
The magic work. Patient. If you are not passionate with what you are doing in terms of research, stay in your office, try to publish paper that will not be read by anybody else, or just a limited number of persons that are just happy together with your models. No. Here what we are doing is really of interest for the whole population, and everybody may understand what we are looking for. And as soon as we will got some answer, we will come back to them and say, look, this is something, this is something. So this is really to be passionate by your research. And then there is no problem. You will go on.
You know, our series have archetypes, and we think of you in the archetype, the explorer. What do you think about that?
Since I was very young, I remember I was probably 6. I have already map on the wall in my sleeping room. I think the first thing that interested me was geography, the variation. So I try all the time to travel, and I better try to travel than to read books. I have a neighbor in my flat. He is reading books. I am traveling. I have a brother. He did not move one day. He did not go out from Belgium when I have been everywhere. So I want to travel, and not to travel as a tourist. I want, and this opportunity of Demographer and on longevity bring me in so wonderful place. 2 weeks ago, I was in Caucasus in a hidden valley. I've been in China in a remote place. I've been everywhere in place where you are not tourist. You enter in the family, you try to understand. And why? Because you discover so wonderful thing, and you are able to try to compare the situation. And if you want to say something, you need to compare with other places. And that's what I'm doing, to try to compare all those places around the world. I visited 85 different countries, and all the European countries, for example.
Yeah, but that's your traveling. But what makes you an explorer?
An explorer is that these travel are never planned by other people than me, which means that when I went to Caucasus 3 weeks ago, I first start to look in the data. I will start to look at everything, and then I say, we have to go there.
Like maybe a new blue zone, you mean?
Yes, it was the wish was to see if one place in Georgia may be considered as blue zone. And to do this, first I have to look to statistical data, to look what is written, and I have in 73 already somebody said there is in Caucasus some longevity. So I went there already in 2003, and I was really in trouble. But then the Tallinn University say we will go to Georgia for fun or for mission, I don't know. I say, okay, if you go to Georgia, I go with you, but I have really an objective. I want to find the place that could be a blue zone and to go there and to assess the situation. So I started to convince them, and finally we went to the Mestia Valley. This is just nearby the Elbrus, the highest mountain. It's a very remote area. You need 3 hours to go to the village, and then 3 more hours to do 42 kilometers to go on the highest village of Europe, 2,300. It's a wonderful place. I have never seen a place like this. And then I will say that I organize everything, and therefore you need to be in touch with local people, because you cannot go and visit the centenarian like this spontaneously. You have to be in touch with local people. And finally, what we did, we have a guide that brings us during one day to visit 6 centenarians. And it was crazy, I will say, because you have the possibility to enter in normal house. One girl, 102, was told me, I want to die. So you have really crazy situation. In another one, it was the Monday after Easter. We were invited to the family meal, to go to the cemetery, to eat on the grave there with them, because this is the way they do it, in a wonderful landscape. It was terrific. We were also invited to drink wine, to drink the local And we visited 6th centenarian. And I remember this girl, 87, no, 101, running around me there and shaking. And then we did the survey. The day after, we went to archive, local archive, and she was only 87, according to us. So none of the 6th centenarian that we met was real centenarian.
But how come that they said they were centenarian?
Their ID cards say that they were centenarian, okay? But if you look in the household book from the 30 and 40, then you see that the date of birth is not the same. It's this possible. I have not yet the full explanation, but it could be possible that to get quickly access to their pension, they push a bit. But in some time, they push 14 years. You see, it's a bit crazy. But as demographer, we are able to see it quickly because you cannot have a baby at 52. You cannot marry for the first time at 38. There is some aspect that you directly understand. So the survey, just the survey asking the year of birth of children and brother and sister, bring us in trouble. But the day after we went to the local archive, the people were very interested. We found all the data, and the conclusion was clear. None of these centenarian was real centenarian. So now I have to do a scientific paper, because if you have a negative point, you have also to tell it. It's not only in Sardinia. Here, it could be that I will conclude by a negative point. Hopefully, it was positive, but in Caucasus, I'm sure there is no exceptional longevity. Why? 2 weeks before, Koreans were there to do film, and a lot of people go there. They are very happy, but I have to conclude that it's not exceptional.
And where comes this wish from countries or people to have
You have
many
to know
centenarians?
that being.
Can you start over because you were overlapping?
Yeah.
So you have to understand that when, as it is the case here, when a village is put in evidence for their longevity, everybody is proud of longevity. Stalin was the one that promoted the longevity in Georgia. He was very proud of the longevity of these Georgian men and so on. So if I have a village and they want to be the first in longevity, it's the situation here in Sardinia. They compete between village to be number one in longevity. And if I come in Villa Grande and say, I will go to the next village, they are a bit afraid that I will found that the other village has better data than they have and so on. So it's really competition. And I have even some problem because of this competition. It's not a small competition. It's a competition in terms of at policy level, political level, and so on, and for a lot of things. So they are proud of their longevity, and everywhere. And a country will be proud, like Japan, to be number one for the life expectancy. And everywhere they say, Japan is wonderful. Okinawa, number one. So you have to be number one, and longevity seems to be the result of the best healthy aging of the well-being of the population. Longevity is something that is the best sign of this well-being.
And when you say competition between villages here, what do you mean by that?
This is another story. During 10 years, I promoted Villa Grande, and I put it on the Guinness Book as the place where men are living longer. So, and then I have some information that other villages are a bit jealous, okay? And I say myself that, okay, if Villa Grande is on the top, the surrounding village are also not far. So I express the wish to enlarge the area of investigation. So there was one girl from that village there that was also interested to attract people because she has an hotel. So there was some interest, but she is a scientist. She did a PhD in La Sorbonne. So they start to manage so that different municipalities will be interested. But doing so, they wanted to do an association of blue zone village. Okay. And I understand that they were, at the end of the day, there were 3 associations starting there. One with this girl, one with a professor in Cagliari, and one with Villa Grande that did also one association. And then Villa Grande say, Michel, you are with us. You have not to be with the other one. So I was not able to be with one, with the other one, and with the third one. Then my position now is very clear. I am scientist. I want to be outside of this competition, and I want to stay at the scientific level. So I will have today or tomorrow some discussion with the Sindaco, with people to say, I don't want to say that I am exclusively with your village. What is important for me is if one village is interested, I may ask them to collect the data, what they do now. 5 villages collected the data, and I went there to validate. And they are also not so high, but they are high in longevity. But just to give an example, the village we will go tomorrow, Seulo, organized this celebration to give the diploma of longevity village. And we give it to 6 villages, and Villa Grande was included. But then during the dinner, the Sindaco asked me, he tell me, I am engineer, and if you have indicator, I know that you have the value of these indicator. You may tell me what is the ranking to see if I'm really better than Villa Grande. So I spent 2 hours to convince him that the topic is not the ranking. The topic is to say you are a longevity village. And on a statistical viewpoint, I tell him, if you have a small population, there is a variation that is due to random. So finally, what I only can tell them is that, are you largely above the Italian average or not? And this is a statistical test. And I hope I was convincing. But I really understand that everybody wants to be the first. And now I have some problem with the other person that I did not answer to her last message, because I don't want to enter in a system of competition. And that's very crucial.